My family cut me off for not naming daughter after my grandmother who locked me in basements as a child. They made false CPS reports claiming I had postpartum depression until I found evidence they were planning to take my baby away. I am at 28 weeks pregnant with my first child, and my entire family has turned against me over a baby name. This situation has gotten so out of hand that I need outside perspective because I cannot tell if I am being unreasonable or if my family has lost their minds. My name is Lillian, 26F, and I am married to Jacob, 29M. We have been together for 4 years, married for 2. When we found out we were expecting a girl, we were over the moon. Jacob and I spent weeks going through baby name books and websites. We finally settled on the name Emma Rose. Emma because we both loved how classic yet modern it sounds, and Rose after Jacob's late aunt who helped raise him when his parents divorced. We announced the name to both our families about a month ago, and that is when everything went wrong. My mother Josephine, 52F, has been obsessed with family traditions for as long as I can remember. She comes from a large Irish Catholic family where names get passed down through generations. The moment we told her about Emma Rose, her face changed completely. She sat there for a few seconds, then asked if we had considered naming the baby Dorothy after my grandmother who passed away 3 years ago. I need to explain something about my grandmother Dorothy. Everyone in our family talks about her like she was a saint. She lived to be 89 years old and was supposedly the matriarch who held everyone together. But Dorothy was not the loving grandmother that everyone remembers. From the time I was 7 until I was about 14, Dorothy would babysit me and my younger brother Mason, 23M, when our parents went out on weekends or during school holidays. Dorothy had very specific ideas about how children should behave. If Mason or I made any noise while she was watching her television programs, she would lock us in the basement pantry. This was not just for a few minutes. Sometimes we would be down there for hours. The pantry was dark and smelled like old vegetables. There were no windows and the door was heavy. Mason was younger than me, so he would cry, which made Dorothy even angrier when she finally let us out. During these babysitting sessions, Dorothy would also withhold food as punishment for what she called disrespectful behavior. If we asked for a snack before dinner, or if we did not sit completely still during her soap operas, she would send us to bed without eating. She would tell our parents that we had eaten plenty and were just being greedy. Our parents always believed her. The worst part was how Dorothy would talk to us when our parents were not around. She would call Mason stupid because he had trouble reading when he was young. She would tell me that I was getting fat and that no boy would ever want to marry me if I kept eating so much. These comments stayed with me for years. Even now, I still hear her voice sometimes when I look in the mirror. When Dorothy got older and moved into assisted living, our family would visit her every few weeks. Everyone would talk about how wonderful she was and how much they missed having her around. I would sit there and say nothing because I knew that if I brought up the way she treated Mason and me, no one would believe me. Dorothy had cultivated this image of being the perfect grandmother who baked cookies and knitted sweaters. After Dorothy died, my mother started talking about her even more. She would say things like how Dorothy was the heart of our family and how she taught us all about respect and tradition. Last year, my mother had Dorothy's name tattooed on her wrist in cursive writing. She posts photos of Dorothy on social media every holiday with captions about how much she misses her guidance and wisdom. So when my mother suggested naming my daughter after Dorothy, I immediately said no. I explained that Jacob and I had already chosen Emma Rose and we were happy with our decision. My mother's expression darkened, and she said that it would be selfish of me not to honor Dorothy's memory. She said that Dorothy would have wanted to have a great-granddaughter carry on her name. Over the next few weeks, my mother brought up the name Dorothy constantly. Every phone call, every text message, every visit somehow circled back to how I should reconsider my decision. She started sending me old photos of Dorothy with my cousins and telling me stories about how Dorothy helped her through difficult times when I was a baby. My father Anthony, 55M, initially stayed out of the discussion, but eventually he started supporting my mother. He would say things about respecting our elders and maintaining family connections. He reminded me that Dorothy had left me some jewelry in her will, which he said showed how much she cared about me. What he did not know was that Dorothy only left me jewelry because she left similar items to all her granddaughters. It was not because we had some special relationship. The situation escalated 3 weeks ago during my baby shower. My mother had organized the whole event at our local community center. About 30 people came, including aunts, cousins, family friends, and some of my co-workers. Everything was going well until my mother stood up to make a speech. She started by thanking everyone for coming and talking about how excited she was to become a grandmother. Then she said that she hoped everyone would join her in encouraging me to consider a more traditional name for the baby. She said that Dorothy had been such an important part of our family and that it would be beautiful to have her name live on through her great-granddaughter. I could see people looking at me expectantly. Some of my older relatives were nodding along with my mother's speech. My cousin Lisa, 30F, even said that Dorothy would have loved to know that a new baby would carry her name. I stood up and said clearly that the baby's name was Emma Rose and that Jacob and I were not changing our minds. My mother's smile disappeared instantly. She said that I was being stubborn and that I was not thinking about anyone else's feelings. She said that Dorothy had done so much for our family and that this was a simple way to honor her memory. When I repeated that our decision was final, my mother's voice got louder. She said that I was being disrespectful and ungrateful. At this point, the entire room was silent. My baby shower had turned into a public confrontation about my grandmother's name. I could see people looking uncomfortable and whispering to each other. I sat back down and tried to change the subject, but my mother was not finished. She said that we would discuss this more later and that she hoped I would come to my senses before the baby arrived. The rest of the baby shower was awkward. People were polite, but I could tell that they were talking about what had happened. Some of my relatives left earlier than expected, and several people came up to me privately to say that they understood my position but that I should try to work things out with my mother. Since the baby shower, things have gotten much worse. My mother calls me multiple times per day to discuss the name situation. My father has started showing up at my house when Jacob is at work to have long conversations about family loyalty and tradition. My brother Mason has been sending me text messages saying that I should just give in because fighting with our parents is not worth the stress while I'm pregnant. My Aunt Adeline 49F came to my workplace last week. She found me during my lunch break and said that my mother was heartbroken about the name situation. She said that Dorothy had always talked about how proud she was of me and that using her name would be a way to keep her spirit alive in our family. When I explained that I had negative memories of Dorothy, Adeline said that I was probably misremembering things because I was young at the time. The most frustrating part is that none of my family members will listen when I try to explain why I do not want to use Dorothy's name. They either change the subject or say that I should focus on the positive memories instead of holding grudges. My cousin Mark, 31M, told me that Dorothy was from a different generation and that I should not judge her by modern standards. Yesterday, my mother showed up at my doctor's appointment. She said that she wanted to be there to hear the baby's heartbeat and that she had brought someone special with her. When I walked into the waiting room, Dorothy's younger sister Mildred, 85F, was sitting there with my parents. Mildred had driven 3 hours to be at this appointment. My mother explained that she thought it would be meaningful for Mildred to hear her great-great-niece's heartbeat, especially since the baby might carry Dorothy's name. Mildred started talking about how Dorothy had always wanted more children and how she would have been thrilled to have a great-granddaughter named after her. When I said once again that the baby's name was Emma Rose, Mildred looked confused. She said that my mother had told her that I was considering Dorothy as a name. My mother quickly said that we were still discussing it and that I needed more time to think about it. I left that appointment without letting anyone hear the heartbeat. I drove straight home and called Jacob at work. When I told him what had happened, he said that we needed to set firmer boundaries with my family. He suggested that we write a letter explaining our final decision and asking everyone to respect it. But I am worried that a letter will only make things worse. My family has made it clear that they see this as more than just a disagreement about a baby name. They see it as a test of whether I respect our family's values and traditions. I know that if I continue to refuse, they will view it as me choosing to put my own preferences above what they believe is right. At the same time, I cannot bring myself to name my daughter after Dorothy. Every time I think about calling my baby by that name, I remember being locked in the basement pantry and being told that I was fat and worthless. I do not want my daughter to carry the name of someone who caused me so much pain, even if other people have good memories of that person. I am running out of time to resolve this situation. The baby is due in 12 weeks, and my family's pressure is only getting more intense. I do not know if I should stand firm on Emma Rose and risk permanently damaging my relationships with my parents and extended family, or if I should consider some kind of compromise that might keep everyone happy. Has anyone else dealt with family pressure over baby names? How did you handle it when your family wanted you to honor someone that you did not have good memories of? I really need advice because this situation is affecting my health and my marriage, and I do not know what to do next. Update 1: I posted 6 weeks ago about my family pressuring me to name my daughter after my deceased grandmother Dorothy, who had mistreated me as a child. I said I would name her Emma Rose instead. Many people told me to stand firm, so that is what I did. I wish I could say things worked out, but they got much worse before they got better. 2 weeks after my original post, I went into early labor at 36 weeks. Jacob rushed me to the hospital, and after 8 hours, Emma Rose was born healthy at 5 pounds 3 ounces. For the first day, everything felt perfect. Jacob and I were exhausted but happy, and Emma was doing well in the NICU as a precaution due to her early arrival. On the second day, a nurse told me that several people had been calling the hospital asking about me and the baby. The calls were coming from my mother, father, Aunt Adeline, and cousin Lisa. They were asking for information about Emma's health and when visiting hours were. I had not contacted any of them when I went into labor because I wanted time to recover and bond with Emma before dealing with family drama. That afternoon, my mother and father showed up at the hospital without warning. They had somehow found out which room I was in and walked right in while I was trying to breastfeed Emma. My mother immediately went to the bassinet and started taking photos of Emma with her phone. She was cooing and saying how beautiful her granddaughter Dorothy was. I corrected her and said that the baby's name was Emma Rose. My mother laughed and said that I would come around once I saw how perfect the name Dorothy was for such a beautiful baby. She said that Emma looked exactly like Dorothy did in her baby photos and that this was clearly meant to be. My father stood by the door like he was guarding it. He said that they had been worried sick when they found out I had given birth without telling them. He said that family should be the first to know about these important moments and that I had hurt their feelings by excluding them. I asked them to leave because I was tired and still recovering from delivery. My mother said that they had driven an hour to get to the hospital and that they deserved time with their granddaughter. She picked Emma up from the bassinet without asking and started walking around the room with her. When I tried to take Emma back, my mother said that I was being possessive and that grandparents had rights too. She said that Dorothy would have wanted her to be involved in raising her great-granddaughter and that I could not keep Emma away from family who loved her. At this point, Jacob returned from getting coffee in the cafeteria. When he saw my mother holding Emma and my father blocking the door, he immediately asked them to leave. He said that we had asked for privacy during our first few days as new parents and that they needed to respect our wishes. My mother said that Jacob was turning me against my own family and that he was the reason I was being so difficult about the name situation. She said that if Jacob really cared about family traditions, he would encourage me to honor Dorothy's memory instead of pushing his own family's names. Jacob took Emma from my mother and asked the nurse to call security. He said that we had not invited them to the hospital and that they were causing stress during what should be a peaceful time. My parents left, but not before my mother said that this was not over and that they would find a way to have a relationship with their granddaughter Dorothy whether I liked it or not. The next day, a social worker named Ms. Chen came to my room. She said that the hospital had received a call expressing concerns about my mental health and my ability to care for Emma. The caller had said that I was suffering from postpartum depression and that I was having paranoid thoughts about my family members. Ms. Chen explained that she was required to do a wellness check whenever the hospital received these types of calls. She asked me questions about my support system, my mental health history, and my plans for caring for Emma after discharge. She also asked about my family relationships and whether I was having any conflicts with relatives. I told Ms. Chen about the pressure I had been getting from my family about Emma's name and about how they had shown up at the hospital without permission. I explained that I was not suffering from postpartum depression but that I was stressed about my family's behavior. Ms. Chen said that the person who called had provided specific details about my supposed mental health issues. They had said that I was refusing to let family members meet the baby and that I was making irrational decisions about the baby's care. They had also said that my husband was encouraging these behaviors and isolating me from people who cared about me. After talking with me for about an hour, Ms. Chen said that she did not see any signs of the problems that had been described in the phone call. She said that I seemed like a competent new mother who was dealing with normal family stress. She wrote in her report that no further intervention was needed. 2 days later, I was discharged from the hospital with Emma. Jacob had arranged for his sister Michelle, 32F, to come stay with us for the first week to help with cooking and cleaning. Michelle lives 4 hours away and had taken time off work to be there for us. On our third day home, my Aunt Adeline showed up at our front door with my cousin Mark and his wife Jennifer, 28F. They said that they were concerned about me and wanted to make sure that I was taking proper care of Emma. Adeline said that my mother was worried because I had not been answering phone calls or responding to text messages. The truth was that Jacob and I had decided to turn off our phones for a few days so we could focus on adjusting to life with a newborn. We were both exhausted and overwhelmed, and we did not want to deal with family drama while we were learning how to care for Emma. Adeline pushed past Jacob when he answered the door and walked into our living room. She said that she needed to see for herself that Emma was healthy and being properly fed. Mark and Jennifer followed her inside, even though Jacob told them that this was not a good time for visitors. Michelle was in the kitchen making dinner when they arrived. Adeline immediately started questioning her about who she was and why she was in our house. When Michelle explained that she was Jacob's sister and that she was helping us during our first week home, Adeline said that family members should be the ones providing support, not outsiders. Adeline went upstairs to our bedroom where Emma was sleeping in her bassinet. She woke Emma up by picking her up and started examining her like she was a doctor. She said that Emma looked thin and asked when she had last been fed. When I said that Emma had eaten an hour earlier, Adeline said that might not be enough for a growing baby. Mark took photos of our house with his phone, including pictures of Emma's nursery, our kitchen, and our living room. When Jacob asked why he was taking photos, Mark said that he wanted to document Emma's living conditions in case there were questions later about her care. Jennifer started asking me detailed questions about my daily routine with Emma. She wanted to know how often I was feeding her, how many hours I was sleeping, and whether I was taking any medications. When I asked why she needed this information, she said that my mother was worried about my ability to handle the responsibilities of motherhood. After they left, Jacob and I realized that this visit was not just about checking on us. They had been gathering information and documenting our home situation for some reason. Jacob called his sister Michelle aside and asked her to write down everything that had happened during the visit, including the questions they had asked and the photos Mark had taken. That night, Jacob's phone rang at 2 a.m. It was his mother Carol, 58F, who lives in another state. Carol said that she had received a very strange phone call from someone claiming to be my mother. The caller had said that I was suffering from severe postpartum depression and that Jacob was enabling my mental health problems. Carol said that my mother had asked her to convince Jacob to bring Emma to stay with my parents until I got proper treatment for my mental health issues. My mother had said that she was worried about Emma's safety and that she had documentation proving that I was not capable of caring for a newborn. Carol told Jacob that the phone call did not make sense because she had been texting with both of us regularly since Emma was born. She said that we seemed like normal new parents who were tired but happy. She had not seen any signs of the serious mental health problems that my mother had described. Jacob explained to his mother what had been happening with my family and the pressure about Emma's name. Carol said that she was shocked by my family's behavior and that she wanted to help us in any way she could. She offered to come stay with us if we needed additional support. The next morning, we discovered that my mother had been calling Jacob's work colleagues and my former co-workers. She had been telling people that I was having a mental health crisis and that we needed intervention from friends and family members. Several people had reached out to Jacob to ask if there was anything they could do to help us during this difficult time. Jacob called his HR department to report that someone was spreading false information about our family situation. His boss was understanding and said that they would not take any action based on the phone calls they had received. But Jacob was worried about how these calls might affect his reputation at work. I realized that my family was conducting some kind of campaign to undermine my credibility as a mother. They were not just pressuring me about Emma's name anymore. They were actively trying to convince people that I was mentally unstable and incapable of caring for my baby. Jacob and I decided that we needed legal advice. We contacted a family law attorney named Mr. Rodriguez who specializes in grandparents' rights cases. We wanted to understand what legal options my family might have and how we could protect ourselves and Emma from further harassment. Mr. Rodriguez said that grandparents' rights laws vary by state, but that in most cases, grandparents cannot obtain custody or visitation rights unless they can prove that the parents are unfit or that there are special circumstances like the death of one parent. He said that my family would need substantial evidence of neglect or abuse to successfully challenge my parental rights. However, he also warned us that false reports to social services could be serious even if they were ultimately unfounded. He said that we should document all interactions with my family members and keep records of their attempts to interfere with our parenting decisions. We decided to send a cease and desist letter to my parents, Aunt Adeline, and cousin Mark. The letter stated that they were no longer welcome in our home without invitation and that they should stop contacting Jacob's family members, our employers, and social services with false information about our family situation. The letter also stated that we were prepared to seek a restraining order if the harassment continued. Mr. Rodriguez said that having this letter on record would help establish a pattern of inappropriate behavior if we needed to take further legal action. 3 days after we sent the letter, my brother Mason called me. He said that our parents were devastated by the legal letter and that they felt like I was punishing them for caring about me and Emma. He said that they were only trying to help and that I was overreacting to their concern. Mason said that our parents loved me and just wanted to be part of Emma's life. He said that if I would compromise on the name issue, everything could go back to normal and we could be a happy family again. He suggested that I could use Dorothy as Emma's middle name instead of Rose. I told Mason that this was not just about the name anymore. I explained how our parents had made false reports about my mental health and had been contacting people in our professional and personal lives with lies about our family situation. I said that their behavior had crossed a line and that I could not trust them around Emma. Mason said that he had not known about the phone calls to social services and Jacob's workplace. He said that our parents had told him that they were just worried about me and that they wanted to make sure Emma was being properly cared for. He said that he would talk to them about backing off and giving us space. But the next day, my mother left a voicemail on our home phone. She said that the legal letter was proof that I was not thinking clearly and that Jacob was controlling my decisions. She said that Dorothy would be heartbroken to know that her great-granddaughter was being kept away from family members who loved her. She said that they were not going to give up on having a relationship with their granddaughter Dorothy, and that they would find a way to make sure Emma knew about her family heritage even if I was determined to cut them out of our lives. That voicemail made it clear that sending the legal letter had not resolved anything. My family was still convinced that they were the victims in this situation and that I was the one behaving inappropriately. They were still calling Emma by the wrong name and still plotting ways to force their way into our lives. Jacob and I realized that we were going to need stronger legal protection if we wanted to keep our family safe from this ongoing harassment. Update 2. My last update was 3 months ago when my family was harassing us about naming our daughter Emma and spreading lies about my mental health. Things escalated dramatically after that, and I need to share what happened because other people dealing with family legal issues might find this helpful. 2 weeks after my last update, Emma and I were at a routine pediatric appointment when my mother, father, and Aunt Adeline showed up in the waiting room. They had somehow found out about the appointment and decided to attend without telling us. My mother walked up to me and said that she had been thinking about everything that had happened and that she wanted to apologize for the misunderstandings. She said that family was more important than disagreements and that she hoped we could work things out for Emma's sake. I was holding Emma and trying to keep my voice low because we were in a public place with other families around. I told my mother that she could not just show up at medical appointments without permission and that we had asked for space to figure things out. My father said that they had rights as grandparents and that they should be included in important decisions about Emma's health care. He said that they had experience raising children and that their input could be valuable for Emma's well-being. Aunt Adeline was taking photos of Emma with her phone while my parents were talking to me. When I asked her to stop, she said that she wanted to document how much Emma had grown since they last saw her. She said that my mother had been heartbroken not being able to watch her granddaughter develop during these important early months. The pediatrician's nurse called us back for the appointment, and my family members tried to follow us. I told the nurse that only Jacob and I were Emma's parents and that the other people were not invited to be part of the medical visit. The nurse said that only parents could be present unless we had given written permission for others to attend. My mother said that this was ridiculous and that grandparents should automatically be allowed to hear about their granddaughter's health. She said that she had attended medical appointments for all her other grandchildren and that I was being unreasonable by excluding her. The nurse asked my mother to wait in the lobby and said that she could speak with us after the appointment if we agreed to it. My mother said that she would wait, but she looked angry about being asked to leave. During Emma's checkup, the pediatrician Dr. Martinez asked if there had been any changes in our family situation since the last visit. I told him about my family showing up uninvited and about the ongoing pressure we were getting about Emma's name and their involvement in her care. Dr. Martinez said that he had actually received a phone call the week before from someone claiming to be Emma's grandmother. The caller had asked detailed questions about Emma's weight gain, feeding schedule, and developmental milestones. She had also asked whether there were any concerns about Emma's parents' ability to provide proper care. Dr. Martinez said that he had not provided any information during that phone call because of privacy laws, but that he had noted the call in Emma's medical file. He said that it was unusual for family members to contact a pediatrician's office without the parents' knowledge or consent. He asked if we wanted him to put a note in Emma's file restricting who could receive information about her care. We said yes and asked him to make sure that only Jacob and I could get medical information about Emma or make appointments for her. When we came out of the appointment, my family was still waiting in the lobby. My mother immediately asked how Emma was doing and whether she was meeting all her developmental milestones. When I said that the appointment went well, she asked for specific details about Emma's weight and height measurements. I told her that Emma's medical information was private and that we were not comfortable sharing those details with extended family members. My father said that this secrecy was proof that something was wrong and that we were hiding problems with Emma's health or development. Aunt Adeline said that she had raised 5 children and that she could tell just by looking at Emma whether she was thriving. She said that Emma looked smaller than she should be for her age and that we might not be feeding her enough. This conversation was happening in front of other families with young children, and I could see people staring at us. Emma started crying, probably because she could sense the tension in the room. I tried to calm her down while my family continued talking about their concerns. My mother reached for Emma and said that she knew how to soothe babies because she had experience with grandchildren. When I stepped back to prevent her from taking Emma, she said that I was being paranoid and overprotective. Jacob arrived at the pediatrician's office just as this confrontation was happening. He had been parking the car and did not realize that my family was there until he walked into the lobby. When he saw what was happening, he immediately came over and asked my family to leave us alone. My father said that Jacob was the problem and that he was turning me against my own relatives. He said that before Jacob came into the picture, I had always been respectful of family relationships and traditions. He said that Jacob's influence was causing me to become selfish and ungrateful. Jacob said that we had asked for space and that showing up at medical appointments was crossing boundaries that we had clearly established. He said that if they continued to harass us at public places, we would have no choice but to involve law enforcement. My mother started crying and said that she just wanted to be part of her granddaughter's life. She said that she had been dreaming of being a grandmother for years and that I was denying her the chance to build a relationship with Emma. Other people in the waiting room were definitely watching this scene unfold. A receptionist came over and asked if there was a problem that needed to be addressed. Jacob said that we were leaving and that the other people were not with us. As we walked toward the exit, Aunt Adeline called out that they knew where we lived and that they were not going to give up on having a relationship with Dorothy. She used my grandmother's name for Emma even though we had corrected them multiple times. That evening, Jacob and I called our lawyer Mr. Rodriguez to report what had happened at the pediatrician's office. He said that showing up at medical appointments could be considered stalking or harassment, especially since we had already sent a cease and desist letter. Mr. Rodriguez said that we had enough documentation to request a temporary restraining order. He explained that we would need to go to court and present evidence of the harassment, including the false reports to social services, the uninvited visits to our home and workplace, and the confrontation at the medical appointment. He said that if the judge granted a temporary restraining order, my family members would be legally required to stay away from us, our home, Emma's daycare, our workplaces, and any medical appointments. Violating a restraining order would result in arrest and criminal charges. 3 days later, we filed for a restraining order against my mother, father, and Aunt Adeline. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. Mr. Rodriguez said that my family members would be notified about the court date and that they could bring their own lawyer if they wanted to contest our request. The night before the hearing, my brother Mason called me. He said that our parents had asked him to be a character witness at the court hearing. He said that they wanted him to testify about what a good family we had always been and how much they loved Emma. Mason said that he was confused about the legal situation because our parents had told him that we were the ones who were being unreasonable. They had said that all they wanted was a normal grandparent relationship with Emma and that we were using the legal system to punish them for caring too much. I explained to Mason everything that had happened over the past few months, including the false reports to social services, the harassment at Jacob's workplace, and the confrontation at Emma's medical appointment. Mason said that our parents had not told him about most of these incidents. Mason said that he did not want to take sides in a legal dispute between me and our parents. He said that he loved all of us and that he hoped we could work things out without involving courts and lawyers. He decided not to attend the hearing as a witness for either side. At the restraining order hearing, Mr. Rodriguez presented evidence of my family's harassment, including phone records, text messages, photos of the uninvited visits, and documentation from the hospital's social worker and pediatrician's office. He also played voicemails that my mother had left using Dorothy's name for Emma and threatening to find ways to force a relationship. My parents attended the hearing without a lawyer. When the judge asked if they wanted to respond to our request for a restraining order, my father said that they were just loving grandparents who were being kept away from their granddaughter by their daughter's controlling husband. My mother said that she was worried about Emma's well-being because I was suffering from postpartum depression and making irrational decisions. She said that they had only contacted social services because they genuinely believed that Emma was not receiving proper care. The judge reviewed all the evidence and said that the pattern of behavior described in our petition was clearly harassment. She said that grandparents do not have the right to force relationships with grandchildren or to interfere with parents' medical and childcare decisions. The judge granted a 1-year restraining order against my mother, father, and Aunt Adeline. The order prohibited them from contacting us directly or indirectly, from coming to our home or workplaces, from attending Emma's medical appointments, and from making false reports to any government agencies. The judge also ordered my family to pay our legal fees because she found that their behavior had been deliberately disruptive and that they had ignored our previous requests to respect our boundaries. After the hearing, my mother tried to approach me in the courthouse hallway. A bailiff immediately intervened and reminded her that the restraining order was now in effect and that she needed to stay away from us. My father was arguing with the bailiff about whether they could talk to us one more time to explain their side of the story. Mr. Rodriguez walked us out of the courthouse through a different exit to avoid any further confrontations. He said that violations of restraining orders are taken seriously by law enforcement and that we should call police immediately if my family members attempted any contact. 2 weeks after the restraining order was granted, we received a letter from a different lawyer representing my parents. The letter stated that they were considering filing a lawsuit for grandparents' visitation rights and that they believed the restraining order was based on false information. Mr. Rodriguez responded to their lawyer and said that any attempt to file for visitation rights while a restraining order was in effect would be viewed as harassment and could result in additional legal consequences. He also said that our documentation of their behavior would be relevant evidence in any future legal proceedings. Since then, we have not had any direct contact with my parents or Aunt Adeline. Mason still talks to me occasionally, but he says that our parents are devastated about being cut off from Emma. He says that they spend most of their time talking about how unfair the legal system is and how Jacob has poisoned my mind against my own family. Emma is now 6 months old and developing beautifully. She is reaching all her milestones and is a happy, healthy baby. Jacob and I have been able to focus on being new parents without the constant stress of family harassment. The restraining order still has 6 months remaining, and we plan to request an extension if there are any attempts at contact before it expires. Mr. Rodriguez said that the documented history of harassment will make it easy to get additional protection if needed. Update 3: It has been 6 months since my last update about the restraining order against my parents and Aunt Adeline. Emma is now 1 year old, and I want to share how everything was finally resolved because the situation took some unexpected turns. The restraining order was set to expire in December, and Jacob and I were planning to request an extension. We had not heard from my family directly since the court hearing, but Mason had mentioned that our parents were still talking about trying to see Emma once the legal restrictions ended. In November, something happened that changed the whole situation. Mason called me and said that he needed to tell me something important about our family. He said that he had been going through old boxes in our parents' basement to help them organize before a planned move to a smaller house. Mason found a box of papers and documents that belonged to our grandmother Dorothy. Inside the box were letters, diary entries, and medical records that our parents had kept after Dorothy died. Mason said that after reading through these documents, he finally understood why I had such negative memories of Dorothy. The papers included letters that Dorothy had written to her sister Mildred complaining about having to babysit Mason and me. In these letters, Dorothy described us as difficult and spoiled children who needed strict discipline to teach us proper behavior. Dorothy had written detailed descriptions of the punishments she used, including locking us in the basement and withholding food. She wrote about these methods like they were normal parenting techniques that our parents were too soft to use themselves. She complained that our parents spoiled us and that someone needed to teach us respect. Mason also found diary entries where Dorothy wrote about how much she disliked children in general. She wrote that babysitting was a burden and that she resented having to spend her weekends dealing with ungrateful grandchildren. She described Mason and me using very harsh language and said that we were proof that modern parents had no idea how to raise children properly. The most disturbing documents were notes that Dorothy had made about her interactions with other grandchildren in our extended family. She had written similar complaints about my cousins and had described using the same punishment methods with them. Mason realized that Dorothy had been systematically mistreating multiple children over many years. Mason said that after reading these papers, he felt sick about how our family had portrayed Dorothy as a loving grandmother. He said that the evidence clearly showed that Dorothy had been abusive and that our parents had either not known about it or had chosen to ignore it. Mason brought these documents to our parents and confronted them about Dorothy's behavior. According to Mason, our mother initially tried to defend Dorothy by saying that the letters and diary entries were taken out of context. She said that Dorothy was from a different generation and that her discipline methods were normal for that time period. Our father was more disturbed by what Mason had found. He said that he had suspected Dorothy was too strict with us, but that he had trusted our mother's judgment about leaving us with her. He said that if he had known about the punishments Dorothy was using, he would never have allowed her to babysit us. Mason said that our parents spent several days arguing about the documents and what they meant for our family situation. Our mother was reluctant to admit that Dorothy had done anything wrong because it would mean that her entire campaign to get Emma named after Dorothy was based on honoring an abusive person. Our father eventually said that they needed to acknowledge the truth about Dorothy and that they owed me an apology for pressuring me to use her name. He said that if Dorothy had really treated Mason and me the way the documents described, then my refusal to honor her memory made complete sense. 2 weeks later, Mason called me again and said that our parents wanted to meet with Jacob and me to discuss the situation. He said that they were ready to admit that they had been wrong about Dorothy and that they wanted to apologize for everything that had happened over the past year. Mason said that our parents understood why we had gotten a restraining order and that they were not planning to fight the legal restrictions. He said that they just wanted a chance to explain what they had learned and to see if there was any possibility of rebuilding our relationship. Jacob and I talked about whether we should agree to meet with our parents. We were both skeptical that one conversation could resolve all the damage that had been done to our family relationships. We were also concerned that this might be another manipulation tactic designed to get access to Emma. We decided to meet with our parents at a neutral location with our lawyer Mr. Rodriguez present. We arranged to meet at his office so that we would have legal protection if the conversation went badly. Mason agreed to attend the meeting as a mediator to help keep everyone focused on resolving the issues. At the meeting, our parents brought copies of the documents that Mason had found in Dorothy's papers. Our mother was clearly uncomfortable, but she admitted that the evidence showed Dorothy had mistreated Mason and me. She said that she had idealized her memories of Dorothy and had not wanted to believe that her mother could have been abusive. Our father apologized for supporting the pressure campaign about Emma's name. He said that he had trusted our mother's judgment about Dorothy without investigating the situation himself. He said that if he had listened to my concerns about Dorothy from the beginning, the whole conflict could have been avoided. Our mother's apology was more difficult for her to give. She said that she had been so focused on maintaining family traditions that she had dismissed my feelings about Dorothy. She said that finding the documents had forced her to confront the fact that her mother had hurt her grandchildren and that she had failed to protect us. She also apologized for making the false reports to social services and for harassing Jacob's family and our workplaces. She said that she had convinced herself that we were making poor decisions about Emma's care, but that she now realized she had been trying to control our parenting choices because she could not accept that we were independent adults. Mr. Rodriguez asked our parents what they expected from this meeting and what changes they were willing to make going forward. Our father said that they understood we might never want to have a close relationship with them again, but that they hoped we would consider allowing supervised visits with Emma at some point in the future. Our mother said that she wanted to respect our decision about Emma's name and that she would stop referring to her as Dorothy. She said that she understood why the name was painful for me and that she should have listened when I first explained my feelings about my grandmother. Jacob asked our parents what they planned to do about Aunt Adeline, who had been one of the most aggressive participants in the harassment campaign. Our father said that Adeline had been acting on information that our mother had given her and that they would explain the new situation to her. Our mother said that Adeline would probably have a hard time accepting the truth about Dorothy because she had also idealized her memories of our grandmother. She said that they would make it clear to Adeline that any further harassment of our family would damage her relationship with them as well. Mason suggested that we try a gradual approach to rebuilding family relationships. He proposed that our parents could send cards or letters to Emma on holidays and birthdays without expecting immediate responses from us. He said that if they could demonstrate consistent respect for our boundaries over time, we might consider allowing limited contact in the future. Jacob and I said that we needed time to think about whether we wanted to rebuild relationships with our parents. We said that the restraining order would remain in effect until it expired and that any future contact would need to follow strict guidelines that we would establish. We also said that our parents needed to make amends with other family members who had been affected by the campaign to pressure us about Emma's name. Several of our relatives had been put in uncomfortable positions when our parents asked them to take sides in the conflict. Our mother agreed to contact Jacob's mother Carol to apologize for the false information she had shared about my mental health. She said that she would explain that her concerns had been based on incorrect assumptions and that she was sorry for causing stress for Jacob's family. The meeting ended with our parents agreeing to respect the remaining time on the restraining order and to wait for us to contact them if we decided we wanted to try rebuilding our relationship. Mr. Rodriguez said that he would draft a written agreement summarizing what had been discussed so that everyone was clear about the expectations going forward. After the meeting, Jacob and I spent several weeks discussing whether we wanted to give our parents another chance. We both felt that their apologies seemed genuine and that learning the truth about Dorothy had been a real turning point for them. We decided to allow limited contact starting after the restraining order expired. We agreed that our parents could send birthday and holiday cards to Emma and that they could have brief phone conversations with us once per month. We said that any future in-person visits would need to be arranged in advance and would initially be supervised by Mason. When the restraining order expired in December, our parents sent Emma a Christmas card with a simple message wishing her well and expressing hope that they could be part of her life someday. They included a small gift but did not ask for any response or make demands about seeing her. Over the past few months, we have had several phone conversations with our parents. The calls have been polite but somewhat awkward as we all try to figure out how to interact after everything that happened. Our parents ask about Emma's development and share updates about their own lives, but they avoid bringing up the past conflicts. In March, we allowed our parents to visit Emma for the first time since she was born. The visit lasted 2 hours and took place at Mason's house with him present as a supervisor. Our parents were clearly nervous and excited to see Emma, but they followed all the rules we had established about not taking photos and not trying to override our parenting decisions. Emma is now 15 months old and is walking and starting to say words. She was shy around our parents during the visit, which was expected since she had never met them before. Our parents were patient and did not try to force interactions with her. Our relationship with our parents is still very limited and fragile. We are proceeding carefully because we do not want to expose Emma to family drama if our parents revert to their previous controlling behavior. The trust that was broken during the name conflict will take years to rebuild, if it can be rebuilt at all. And Adeline has not been part of any of the reconciliation efforts. According to Mason, she was very upset when our parents told her about the documents they found about Dorothy. She accused our parents of betraying Dorothy's memory and said that she could not accept that Dorothy had mistreated her grandchildren. Adeline has apparently told other extended family members that our parents are lying about Dorothy to appease us and that the whole family is falling apart because people are not respecting their elders anymore. Mason said that Adeline's reaction has actually helped our parents understand how they had been thinking about family loyalty before they learned the truth about Dorothy. Looking back on this whole situation, I think the most important lesson is that family traditions and relationships should not be preserved at the expense of protecting children from harm. My parents were so invested in maintaining their idealized image of Dorothy that they were willing to dismiss my experiences of abuse and to harass me when I refused to honor her memory. The legal system ultimately protected Emma and our family from continued harassment, but it took finding concrete evidence of Dorothy's abusive behavior for my parents to acknowledge that my feelings about her were valid. I wish they had been willing to listen to me from the beginning instead of requiring proof that my grandmother had documented her own mistreatment of children. Emma will grow up knowing her grandparents, but the relationship will be different than it would have been if this conflict had not happened. My parents will have to earn their place in her life rather than expecting automatic respect because of their family role. The most positive outcome is that this situation has strengthened my relationship with Jacob and has shown us that we can successfully protect our family when necessary. We learned to set boundaries, to seek legal help when needed, and to prioritize our child's well-being over maintaining family harmony. Emma's name is Emma Rose, and that is what everyone calls her now. She will never have to carry the name of someone who hurt her mother, and she will grow up in a family that prioritizes her safety and well-being over traditions that cause harm. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2 caught my wife having an affair with my brother's best friend. My entire life is collapsing and I don't know how to move forward. I never imagined I'd be writing this. Growing up, I watched my parents' messy divorce tear our family apart. My dad cheated with his secretary, the most cliché thing ever. Mom never recovered, turned to drinking, and I spent my teenage years basically raising my younger sister. I promised myself I'd never put my future kids through that hell. But here I am, living my worst nightmare. Our story started 12 years ago. I was a junior in college studying construction management, and my brother Rob, 35M, was hosting a Super Bowl party. His girlfriend Qley, 34F, brought her friend Annie, 29F, along. Annie wore her dad's vintage football jersey and knew more stats than any of us guys. We talked until 3 a.m. that night, long after everyone else left. I knew she was special. We dated through college and the rough early years of our careers. Annie supported me when I worked 80-hour weeks as a junior project manager. I cheered her on through 3 promotions at her marketing firm. We lived in a tiny apartment, saved every penny, and dreamed about our future. Annie was the planner, she mapped everything out. House by 27, kids by 30, early retirement to travel the world. Rob and Qley got married first and bought a house in our dream neighborhood. When the place 2 doors down went up for sale, they called us immediately. We stretched our budget but made it work. That was 3 years ago. Since then, life has been perfect. Sunday family dinners became our tradition. Rob's kids started calling us Uncle Mike and Aunt Annie. Qley and Annie became inseparable, morning runs, cooking classes, weekend shopping trips. Everything changed last year when Rob's best friend Mark, 36M, moved back after his divorce. He told us his ex-wife cheated with their marriage counselor. Everyone felt bad for him. Rob wanted to help, so Mark became a regular at our gatherings. He seemed like a good guy at first, always offering to help with house projects, bringing wine to dinner, entertaining Rob's kids. Looking back, there were signs I ignored. Mark always sat next to Annie at dinner. They developed inside jokes I didn't understand. Annie started dressing up more when she knew he'd be around. She'd get texts late at night and smile at her phone. When I asked, she'd say it was work or Qley. I trusted her completely. Last Tuesday changed everything. It was raining at the construction site, so I headed home early. Mark's red pickup was in our driveway. This wasn't unusual, he sometimes used our pool or borrowed tools from our garage. But something felt wrong. The house was too quiet. Annie's car was there, but she hadn't answered my text about coming home early. I found them in our bedroom. The room we painted together last summer. The bed where we talked about our future kids. They were getting dressed, but it was obvious what had happened. Annie saw me first. Her face went white. Mark grabbed his shirt and tried to speak, but I just walked out. I drove aimlessly for hours. My phone kept buzzing but I couldn't look at it. I ended up at a hotel near the airport. After staring at the ceiling all night, I turned my phone back on. 47 missed calls from Annie, 15 from Rob, countless messages. Annie's messages evolved from "Where are you?" to "Please come home, we need to talk to I can explain everything." Rob's messages were different. Mark had shown up at his house drunk and confessed everything. This wasn't a one-time thing. They'd been meeting at our house for 4 months, whenever I was at work. Rob kicked Mark out and ended their 20-year friendship. I stayed at the hotel for 3 days. Qley brought me clean clothes and sat with me while I broke down. That's when I learned the full extent of Annie's betrayal. The affair started at Rob's birthday party in March. Mark had been pursuing Annie for months, random texts, convenient run-ins at stores, always offering help with any problem she mentioned. Annie used our family time to meet him. She'd arrive early to Sunday dinners, claiming she was helping Qley cook, but really meeting Mark in their garage. She manipulated Qley into covering for her multiple times, saying they were going shopping or to wine tastings when she was meeting Mark. Every room in our house now holds tainted memories. The kitchen where we danced while making dinner. The living room where we planned our future. The bedroom where I found them. It all feels poisoned. I can't go back. Update 1: The support from this community has been eye-opening. Every message helped me get through another day. After reading your advice, I met with a lawyer and filed for divorce. I texted Annie to clear out her stuff before I came home. She moved in with her parents. The last week revealed more than I ever wanted to know. Annie's dad showed up at my hotel room crying. He raised Annie as a daddy's girl, she was class president, never missed curfew, graduated top of her class. He kept asking where they went wrong in raising her. I told him they didn't, Annie made her choices as an adult. He hugged me and said I'd always be his son, regardless of what happens. Rob's taking this harder than anyone. He introduced us, brought Mark into our lives. Qley found messages between Annie and Mark on their shared family plan going back to January. The texts revealed everything. Annie and Mark had been apartment hunting together. She planned to leave me after my company's big project finished next month, said it would be the right time since I'd be getting my annual bonus. Mark's story about his divorce was a lie. Rob discovered Mark had cheated on his ex-wife with multiple women, including their neighbor and his ex-wife's cousin. His ex didn't cheat with their counselor, Mark made that up to gain sympathy. The lies keep unraveling. Those late marketing meetings? Dates with Mark. Monthly girls' wine club? Never existed. The yoga classes she started last fall? She spent those hours at Mark's apartment. She even used our anniversary dinner reservation to take him out while I was at a work conference in Houston. My favorite restaurant, where all the staff knew us. They must have seen them together. Annie's brother Tom, 31M, brought me more proof yesterday. He found Annie's secret credit card statements. She spent over $15,000 on gifts for Mark, designer watches, weekend trips, even a down payment on a jet ski. That money came from our joint savings, meant for our future kids' college funds. Qley finally confessed something that makes me sick. Annie had asked her to delete their home security footage multiple times, claiming she had been crying about work stress and didn't want me to worry. Now we know she was meeting Mark there when Rob traveled for work. Qley felt too guilty to keep it secret anymore. The depth of Annie's deception is staggering. She volunteered to handle our finances last year, saying she wanted to learn more about investing. Now I know she was hiding her spending on Mark. She suggested I take that construction project 2 hours away, saying the experience would help my career. Really, she wanted more time with him. Our friends are choosing sides. Most support me, but some mutual friends think I should hear her out. Annie's college roommate called to tell me that Annie and Mark had been flirting at Rob's Christmas party last year. She didn't tell me then because she thought it was harmless. Now she feels guilty for staying quiet. I've barely eaten or slept. The thought of them together in our bed keeps me awake. I canceled our joint credit cards and gym membership. Changed all my passwords. Found a new barber because Annie's cousin works at my old one. It's exhausting having to rebuild every aspect of my life. Update 2: These past 2 weeks have shown me how deep this betrayal goes. Annie's trying everything to stop the divorce. Her mother ambushed me at my hotel, camping outside until security removed her. Annie showed up at my construction site in tears, causing such a scene that my supervisor had to escort her out. She even enrolled in my morning CrossFit class, forcing me to switch gyms. Rob uncovered more about Mark's past that makes me sick. Turns out Annie wasn't his only married target. He had affairs with 2 other women from our social circle. Lisa, 33F, who suddenly moved across the country last year for a dream job, was actually running from her guilt after a 6-month affair with Mark. Then there was Rachel, 38F, my project manager's wife, who mysteriously divorced last spring. Rob exposed everything at our local pub where Mark was a regular. Mark's reputation crumbled overnight. He packed up and moved to Seattle last week. Annie's family is imploding over this. Her dad and brother are firmly on my side. They helped me pack her things and even hired a storage unit in their name so she couldn't find out where her stuff was. But her mom and sister have gone full damage control. They ambush me everywhere, the grocery store, gas station, even my doctor's office. They insist marriage is sacred and I need to fight for our love. They don't know about the apartment hunting or the money she stole. The most frustrating part is how some friends are reacting. Pete, 34M, who was supposed to be my friend first, suggested I was partly to blame because I worked long hours. He conveniently forgot how Annie encouraged me to take overtime projects. Monica, 31F, another college friend, said I should have noticed the signs sooner. I cut contact with anyone who tried to rationalize Annie's choices. Our couple's friends are dissolving into chaos. 2 other couples have started marriage counseling, paranoid that this could happen to them. Our monthly poker group disbanded because no one wants to be around Mark's other victims' husbands. The community pool where we all hung out got too awkward, too many whispers, too many pitying looks. Annie's mom started a prayer chain at their church for our marriage. Now random church members message me about forgiveness and redemption. One elderly lady left a Bible on my truck with passages about reconciliation highlighted. I had to switch parking spots at work to avoid these daily gifts. The financial mess is worse than I thought. Annie's secret credit card had a $23,000 balance, all gifts for Mark or hotels they met at. She used our investment account passwords to withdraw money, claiming it was for home improvements. There was even a lease application for an apartment in both their names, dated for next month. She planned everything while sleeping next to me every night. Update 3: It's been a month since my world exploded. The divorce is moving forward steadily. I accepted a project management position in Denver, ironically, the same job I turned down last year because Annie said she couldn't leave her family. Rob and Julie visit every other weekend. Our relationship has actually strengthened through this nightmare. Funny how betrayal shows you who really matters. Annie's getting more desperate. She's created at least 15 new email addresses to contact me. Her messages range from suicidal threats to detailed plans of how we can rebuild trust. Last week she mailed a 30-page handwritten letter to my office, recounting every moment of our relationship and her supposed regrets. I returned it unopened. Her cousin tried to slip me a USB drive full of videos of Annie crying and apologizing. It went straight into the trash. Her dad's been a surprising source of support. He handled the house sale himself, met with realtors, managed paperwork, coordinated with movers. He made sure Annie stayed away during the whole process. The house sold above asking price. The money will be split in the divorce, but my lawyer's focusing on recovering the funds Annie spent on Mark. The community fallout continues. 3 couples from our friend group have separated, all citing trust issues after watching our marriage implode. Mark's other victims' stories keep surfacing. One of them, Rachel, reached out to apologize. She knew about Annie but stayed quiet out of shame. Mark had a whole system, targeting married women at community events, playing the divorced victim, slowly integrating himself into their lives. Rob discovered Mark never actually moved to Seattle. He's living with some woman in a nearby city, probably starting his cycle again. Rob wanted to warn her, but I told him to stay out of it. I'm done letting Mark affect my life in any way. Annie still shows up at random places. She got a job at a coffee shop near my new office, probably hoping to run into me. She joined my new gym but got kicked out for harassing me. She even tried befriending my new project coordinator, claiming to be an old family friend needing to deliver urgent news. The hardest part is watching the impact on Rob's kids. They used to ask about Aunt Annie every day. Now they're learning about betrayal way too young. Their school counselor called because they're struggling with trust issues. Another innocent casualty of Annie's selfishness. Yesterday, I finally packed away our wedding album. Found Annie's handwritten vows tucked inside, promises of eternal faithfulness, trust, and honesty. The same promises she broke while planning a future with my brother's best friend. The same promises she now swears she'll keep if I give her another chance. I'm rebuilding slowly. Joined a local hiking group, reconnected with college friends in Denver, started learning Spanish, something Annie always said was a waste of time. Some days are harder than others, but I'm no longer feeling lost. To everyone who supported me through this, thank you. Your stories and advice helped me stay strong when I wanted to give in. Special thanks to this community for showing me I'm not alone. Life isn't what I planned, but at least it's authentic now.